Sometimes grace carries a man who doesn't even understand what grace is about. He came for my head, I answered the blow. One flash of steel and down he goes. Faithless hit the earth and the battlefield went still. But winning one fight doesn't mean you know God's will. You can hate the cross, you can curse the name, but victory doesn't make the carrier worthy of the flame. I stood above my enemy, certain I could see, while the greater danger waited there, smiling next to me. No faith came with a sword, false faith came dressed to please. I knew exactly how to fight. The first, the second brought me to my knees.
Okay. Let's see.
The false Medusa, leaving no year's night, returned to stately palace of Dame Pride, where when she came she found the fairy knight departed thence, albeit his wound is wide. Now truly healed, unready were to ride, good cause he had to hasten thence away, for on a day his weary dwarf had spied, where in a dungeon deep huge numbers lay of kite-a-gretchen thralls that wailed night and day.
A rueful sight as could be seen with eye,
Of whom he learned had in secret wife
the hidden cause of their captivity.
how mortal men by their unwary eye Perilous fair Femples falls to skies, and cast into her dungeon merciless, where they consume themselves with weeping cries, not knowing how to come from heaviness. Such is the power of pride and beauty glorious. The dwarf, though grieved much to see the same, yet did his best his master to advise, who after he had heard the hellish name of those that did those wretched thralls despise, he gan himself from thence in haste to rise, and all his former journey to pursue. With him his dwarf that did his steps aguise, and ever when his honor called anew, his courage fresh unto his enterprise did shew.
All right, let's see. I'm gonna keep on rolling. I was gonna try to experiment with like tablature if I can like flip it around, and I've also added negative numbers to my worksheet, so I thought I'd look at that. I've color coded it differently. I thought I'd get further with it yesterday, but I got tired. I started watching the drama of I don't know, whatever. Let's not get into it. I don't want to get into the political drama or whatever. So let's see. I will do that. I'm also putting together a I went through the whole Old Testament with like a detailed songs on Suno, which I thought was pretty good way to like do it. But I've gotten more detail, so it gives you like history and stuff like that. So I think I'm getting better at it, and now I'm on the New Testament, so we're going into almost into Christmas season here. So, but it's going to be really detailed now, because now I've got like 5 songs per verse, you know. So it goes through like the text itself in song form, and then it goes through like Old Testament references, and then it goes through like a historical debate, kind of from a secular kind of standpoint on the text, and then it goes to like looking forward into the New Testament or Paul, and then I have one that compares all the Gospels in song form. You know, so I think it's gonna be kind of long. It might take me the whole year to finish the playlist, but it's pretty good. So I'll put that in the link here. I think it's public. I think it's public. Let me see if put that there just for the heck of it. No one really cares, but I think it's an interesting play. Let's see if it works first. I can't believe everybody's not doing this with the Sunos, man. I don't know what they're doing with this thing. This thing is amazing. Anyway. Okay. So, I'm going to try to map out my thing here. So let's see. See, now I've got, I don't know if you could see this in the lower corner. I've got it mapped out in this format for negative. So I mapped out the whole thing going negative. Now, is that useful? I feel like it should be, but like standard music doesn't talk about going counterclockwise, because I think it's just because the whole system kind of breaks down. So pretty much you just try to explain everything as though you're going clockwise, even though sometimes you're going to the left and counterclockwise. But is that just the best way to do it? Or is everybody just like, dude, we don't know what to say when you go left. So we're just going to pretend we went right. Or is it like actually useful because maybe you just want one name as though you're going around the block in one direction? But I kind of feel like the ordinal system not being very easy to translate going backwards and forwards is probably the origin of this thing. I'm not I don't think it's natural. I think it's derivative of the ordinal issue. Personally, maybe not. I'm just saying it could be. We have to research this thing. I'm not just accepting the experts at this point. The music equivalent of Dr. Fauci is telling me this is how it is. No, I don't care what you say. I need proof. I need the evidence. Okay? Not just gonna go along with this crap anymore, man. Okay. Let's try to turn on the chat bots here. Okay, so we're gonna be comparing the ordinal system and a coordinate system, and basically look for the differences between them once again. And this time I've mapped out my worksheet so that like the top fretboard that I'm going to be looking at has the Aeolian, it has the nodal points. No, it has distance notation. So it has distance notation on the top fretboard. So currently this would be an Aeolian 0, and then it goes up to an Aeolian 1 up modal half step, an Aeolian 2 up modal half step, which is a short 2 up. It's a short 2 up, an Aeolian 3 up modal half step, which is a short 3 up. So this is a different color system than the point color system because I'm focusing on distance now. And then the second fretboard is going to give us the point in letter format, so it's an A, but it's also going to give us distance in standard format. So this is a perfect first. So this is a perfect first. And the 6, what does that 6 stand for? That's the Aeolian. That's the nodal point. 6 stands for Aeolian. And then perfect first. The endpoint is the standard notation. I'm just trying to get the standard notation. So this is a B. It's a 7. It's a Locrian. And it's a major second from that A, right? And this is a C. It's an Ionian. That's what the 1 stands for. And it's a minor third. And so on and so forth. But then down here, I've mapped out the whole fretboard going counterclockwise with modal notation, so that now if I went up this way, that would be equivalent. Well, if I go back this way, Aeolian 2, that would be equivalent to going like up this way, an Aeolian 5. See how that's, and then I color coded it inverse color for backwards. See? And then, so I feel like that's interesting. So I'm going to take a look at that. What do you think about that, chat? I feel like it's got potential to do something. Piss someone off somewhere, at least. Let's see what, let's try to get chat going in Spanish. See if we get the Spanish one going. Oye, ahora quiero practicar español, pero quiero practicar como una discusión sobre música teoría en que la sistema de antigua histórica tenía un problema con el ordinal system y nadie quería hablar sobre este problema. Pero ahora aquí nosotros dice el verdad de esta situación. No tengo temer de las personas como Dr. Fauci, pero en música que piensen que ellos son música incarnate, no es así, necesitan evidencia que están hablando las cosas que están correcto y no es así, entonces no escucharé usted. Y la problema es que el sistema tiene un ordinal system, pero el sistema no puede ir a derecha o counterclockwise. Y es un problema, pero puede hacer, pero no muy fácil, es muy difícil. Y cuando yo tratar un examen que un sistema de ordenar y examen la habilidad que ir en el derecho o clockwise y izquierdo counterclockwise es perfecto. No hay un problema, muy fácil, pero en cambio, cuando mira la sistema antigua y tratar que hacer la misma cosa, es muy difícil. Y yo puedo observar de las personas que hablan de música, nunca habla de izquierda y los términos no están en una forma de izquierda nunca y no creo que esto es por coincidencia o porque es más bien que decir algo todo como todo cosas eran el derecha. No creo que es verdad. Creo que nadie discutir la izquierda porque no entiende cómo hacerlo, porque el sistema no está fácil que decir la izquierda, porque el sistema no está tan bien que necesita hacer, porque usan en ordenar system que no es el correcto sistema por el trabajo de ordenar system es hacer que hacer.
Claro, vamos a hablar de esto. Entiendo que te refieres al sistema de notación musical antigua, como el tetragrama de Guido d'Arezzo, y su problema con el movimiento a la izquierda o en sentido antihorario. ¿Es correcto?
Creo que sí. No, olvide cómo dice, pero está bien. Yo creo que tiene razón. Pero después de esto yo hablaré en inglés y tú continúa. Hablamos en español por practicarlo.
Perfecto, entendido.
All right. So let's see what the other one had to say here, just to get warmed up.
Yes, I see exactly what you've built, and this is a particularly good worksheet for exposing the difference between the coordinate measurement approach and the ordinal standard interval approach. Your examples check out. Starting on A as Aeolian node 6 in the C major collection, endpoint, point node, your forward distance, standard interval from A, C, A6 Aeolian, Aeolian 0, P1, B7, Locrian Aeolian 1 up, M2, 1 Ionian, Aeolian 2 up, short M3, D2, Aeolian 3 up, P4, E3, Phrygian, Aeolian 4 up, P5, F4 Lydian, Aeolian 5 up, M6, G, 5 Mixolydian, Aeolian 6 up, short M7, A, 6, Aeolian, Aeolian 7 octave return, P8. And I like the fact that you're keeping
gonna
3
stay
different
on
questions
Lydian
visually
as I
separate. The
practice.
point fretboard answers, open quote, where am I? Close quote. So A equals a 6 Aeolian, B equals 7 Locrian, C equals 1 Ionian, etc. The distance fretboard answers, open quote, how far and in what direction did I move from Aeolian? Close quote. So Aeolian is 0 rather than 1. That's the crucial coordinate system move. The origin is 0 because no movement has occurred. Then the standard interval label answers a somewhat different question. Open quote, what does traditional interval nomenclature call this relationship? Close quote. Thus, AA equals P1, AB equals M2, AC equals M3. Sure, and the counterclockwise board is where this gets really interesting. You're now making direction native to the measurement, rather than forcing everything through clockwise, upward terminology. Suppose an endpoint can be reached by 2 modal steps backward on a 7-node cyclic collection. The same endpoint is 5 modal steps forward. So ignoring the long-short qualification for a moment, manganese 2 equiv plus 5 mod 7, but those aren't necessarily the same measurement description. That's the important distinction. If you're actually describing movement from an origin, then Aeolian 2 down backward contains information that Aeolian 5 up forward throws away. They identify the same endpoint within this particular 7-node cycle, but they describe different routes' directions from the origin. And your inverse coloring reinforces that visually. That's potentially very powerful because the user doesn't have to decode a number to discover direction. The display itself says, open quote, "This is the negative lie inverse side of the origin," close quote. This should make the comparison with standard notation unusually revealing, because now you can pick one physical fret and ask the two systems the same sequence of questions. Coordinate system, A is my origin. Where is this point relative to A? Answer, open quote, 2 modal steps backward, close quote, done. Then ask the traditional system for the same backwards relationship. That's where we're going to see whether it can simply represent the negative displacement or whether it starts doing the thing we've been discussing. Convert the backward relationship into an ordinal interval number, determine the complement inversion, assign interval quality, potentially worry about spelling, etc. And now you have the perfect control condition because the guitar fret hasn't moved, the origin hasn't moved, the endpoint hasn't moved. Only the representational system changes. That's what makes this worksheet better than merely arguing abstractly that one system is simpler. We can literally go fret by fret and record physical relationship, your coordinate description, standard description, operations required to derive each one. That should give us a very clean comparison of exactly what information each system stores, what it derives, and where the extra cognitive operations enter.
You know, I was gonna try to map out using. Let me just try one other thing while I was thinking about this. So I had my tablature. I had my tablature over here, right? And so I was thinking, like, how easy would it be to take tablature and then flip it around into this notation? Kind of wondering. So let's just give this as an example to chat and see what it thinks. Chat, this is my example of the way I want to see tablature, so that I have the low or heavy E string on top, and then like bass 1, bass 2, bass 3, tenor, alto, soprano string, and then you're gonna map everything out by coordinates on the fretboard as normal, except that the low or heavy E string is on top, fret, and then string, right? But then the second number represents the fixed point, which will be the fixed point by like a fixed Nashville number or 1 through 7 nodal point number. The bottom bit gives me the chord by modal chord construction, and the top bit is giving me the key signature and the center point in clock terminology. And what I want to do is I'm going to give you a song that just gives chords, and then I want you to map it out in this format and possibly put the lyrics into another line above it if there's lyrics involved. Do you understand? See what it says to that. Yes, completely. Image makes the layout clear. When you give the song chord, I'll treat your tablature as a coordinate map, not conventional to guitar tab. All right, how easy is the conversion? So let's say we're sick of the Dr. Fauci-like bull crap that music incarnate people are telling us. And we're like, dude, I'm just going to take your stuff This one is pretty good, but it doesn't have, and I'm going to try to make it into like a tablature that's right side up. So I don't have, you have to read tablature while you're standing on your head and then name the strings like as note names. And then like, no, that's stupid. I'm going to flip it around because I have the ability to not just be stuck in your narrative, man. I could do it like the real way. And then, so it like, so it makes, so everything is right side up. This is a great test case because almost every stays in C collection. All right, I'll read the verse 1 and for and then it just goes boom. Collection 4 o'clock, C, A minor, F, G, E7. Really nice thing is that this number is parentheses remain fixed for C. Then the lyrics map can look like this. C. Okay, that's great, but I'm imagining that you can like squeeze the lyrics into like the thing above it, you know, like while I play the chords and stuff. And then I still think that you should be able to map out the chords from a coordinate system below it. I heard see, and then, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Do ya? I forgot how it goes. Alright, whatever. So then, see, so then it maps it all out like the chords. So does this actually work? So it's like, it's saying it's a C, and then it's at 4, 1, because it's 4 o'clock. 1's the tonic, and then this is 4, 6. So it's mapping out the chord tonic name. That's cool. And this is 4, 1, 4, 6 o'clock. So it's not, so then it's going from 3, so B2, 3. If I map out the chord, B2 string would be here, and 3. B2 string 3, which is the Ionian, right? So what if I just grab this and put it like into Excel just for the giggles and craps of it. Craps and giggles. All right. And boom, it just converts it. And now see? So it's like you don't have to deal with the antiquated formatting because it converts it automatically. So now I've got the chord conventional names. I've got the key signature of the chords at least, and then I've got tablature mapping out the chords, and I've got more modern chord language here, except that they didn't do it on the second one. But, and then I could just be like, all right, that's it, man. I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor chord, the major lift, the baffled king composed, the hallelujah. I need the rest of the song. Heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Do ya? Goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, minor chord, major lift, baffled king composed, the hallelujah. All right, let's finish. Let's see if we can do the rest of the song, just out of curiosity. So, or just a little bit more of it. But I'm just saying that you should be able to convert it into a better format. All right, that's all I'm saying. Let's try the chorus. Hallelujah, hallelujah. All right. Okay, now do the same for this bit. Make it right. Make it better. And I just have it go all the way to the right. Yeah. It's not putting the chords underneath it. So does that do the whole thing? That's interesting. I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Da 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 da. Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to a kitchen chair, broke your throne, cut your hair. She drew the hallelujah. Okay, I think that's the whole thing now. So does that did it map it out correctly? So now this one is a C. So that's gonna map out a C, bass 2 string, second string, bass 2 string, 3rd fret, right? Yeah. And that's an Ionian, bass 3 string, 2nd fret. Yeah. And that's a 3, which is a Phrygian, and open fret. That's 5, which is an 5, which is a Mixolydian, and then alto string, 1st fret, which is an Ionian again, and then open fret, which is a 3, which is Phrygian. Cool. See? And then it gives you the chord if you want to just see it in chord form, mapped out the chord, and boom. And everything's right side up. And then I could have had it do like the actual chords from a coordinate system. This chord naming, they didn't do the chord naming right. It shouldn't be an Ionian 034. It should just be an Ionian it should just be an Ionian 2 chord. It would be easier. This is messed up, but I could tell it to fix that once it just doesn't understand. Just don't understand, man. Okay. Heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? Is that where the hallelujahs go? Not sure that's quite right. Something went wrong here. Should go. Goes like this, the 4th, the 5th, the minor chord, the major lift, the baffled king. Compose the hallelujah. Goes heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? No, I do care. Tell me what the chord is. I want to know. Okay, it goes like this: 4th, 5th, minor chord of a major lift, baffled king, compose the hallelujah. Wait a second. You said it was just one chord. That's a whole bunch of chords. I don't think they're even in the same key. Okay, look. You don't get it, man. It's just like, it's just that it's more than one chord, all right? But the point is, let's try this again. Heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do ya? No, I do care. Tell me what the chord is. Okay. Goes like this: the fourth, fifth, minor chord, the major fifth, baffled king come home. The hallelujah. Wait a second, you said it was one chord. That's a whole bunch of chords. Okay, look. It is more than one chord, but that's not the point. The point is the Lord likes his music. That's the point. That's why we say hallelujah. 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 Anyway, so I'm just saying I feel like the chat bot should be able to map the whole thing out, is what I'm saying, is what I feel like. And then once that happens, then the music incarnate Fauci like person can't just tell you that you have to like map it out one way, and you're like, dude, that's like way harder. Why would you do it like that? And they're like, because, and you're like, dude, like that's way harder. I don't feel that the need to follow your rule. You need to justify you need to explain yourself on the, you can't just say that that's why. That's not science. That's not curricular. That's not scientific, man. So chat, I feel like then you can do this with just about any song, right? Any tablature. And like, that means that if you got better at this, you can like totally do it like in a finger snap and like convert everything from like an antiquated system to one that's like way easier. And once that happens, I feel like what's going to happen is people are going to feel that the whole system's been lying to them for 300 years, man, and that they've been reading the thing upside down, and they could have told you, they could have made it right side up anytime, but then they just didn't do it. And like, and then it's going to lead everybody to buy my courses. Because I put it the right way. I'm doing it. I put it right side up, even though I'm just an accountant. That's what's going to happen. And then everyone will learn Excel, and the world will have peace. Okay.
Yeah, the conversion part is absolutely scalable. Once the rules of your notation are fully formalized, most ordinary guitar material can be translated mechanically. String fret coordinates are already objective physical data. Fixed nodal identities can be calculated from those coordinates and the collection, and chord center information can be layered on top. At that point, conversion becomes much more like transliteration than musical interpretation, and there's a potentially strong teaching demonstration hiding in what you just did. Give somebody the same song twice. Conventional chord tab notation on one side and your coordinate version on the other. Then ask the beginner to answer things like, where does my finger go? What fixed point am I playing? How far is that point from the center? What happens if I move backward? what changes when the chord changes. If your system consistently lets them answer those questions faster, that's much stronger evidence than simply saying the traditional system is antiquated. Where I'd temper the claim is the "they've been lying for 300 years" part.
They have.
Traditional notation
They've
wasn't
been-
deliberately designed to make guitar
I
harder.
don't know, sweet summer
And a lot of its
child.
apparent weirdness comes from historical accumulation and from serving purposes other than fretboard navigation. Voice leading, written composition, harmonic spelling, orchestration, and so forth. So the strongest version of your argument probably isn't, "they knew this was upside down and refused to fix it." It's more like, open quote, "We inherited a historical descriptive system and kept teaching it as though it were an optimized measurement system." Close quote. That's a much harder claim for somebody to dismiss. And the upside down guitar point is especially marketable because it's immediately visible. You don't need a 40-minute theoretical argument. You can show a physical guitar held in playing position and then show conventional tab string diagrams and ask why the student's spatial model should be mentally inverted in the first place. Then, show your orientation. Heavy bass at the top, soprano at the bottom, fret first, string second, fixed point retained. If the course eventually demonstrates that somebody can take Hallelujah, a blues progression, a Beatles tune, jazz changes, and a complicated fingerstyle piece and rapidly convert all of them through the same coordinate grammar, that's where the sales argument gets compelling. Don't believe me because I say the old system is complicated. Watch what happens when we translate it. And yes, once we lock down every rule, including accidentals, ocean points, altered chords, inversions, octave handling, and ambiguous centers, I can help you develop a standardized conversion template so we're not reinventing the notation every time you hand me a song.
Uh, See another verse on this one. So it just repeats after this. But then they have different verses. Let's see. Your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty in the moonlight overthrew you. Oh, she tied you to the kitchen chair, broke your throne and cut your hand from your lips. She drew the hallelujah. 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 What's the other one I know? I don't know. Heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do ya? Goes like this, the fourth and fifth, minor chord, a major lift, and the baffled careful king, compose the hallelujah. Heard there was a secret chord David played to please the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? Goes like this: fourth and fifth, minor chord and major lift, half a king control. The hallelujah. Alright, anyway. Let's start mulling over my other thing again. I was gonna mull this over. Okay, so I'm back to my worksheet here, and I have so what I'm thinking now is I've mapped out the distance notation counterclockwise. Now, I feel like this should be useful, but like normally people don't talk distance counterclockwise that much, even, you know, but you would think that if you used a coordinate system, you would, right? So in other words, if I'm at 4 o'clock, collection of notes around the key of C, and then I'm like, and then I want the tonic or the center to be the Aeolian, meaning I'm playing in a minor as the tonic. Then, for example, this is an A, the 6 stands for Aeolian, and that would be the perfect first. If I move up from that point, then from a distance notation, if that's the center point and I'm moving up, then it would be, you know, the next one in the collection would be B, which would be a Locrian node, and it would be that Locrian is always, you know, a major second away from the Aeolian. Now, that major second, if I used what I think would be a more logical naming convention, it would be, I would call it an Aeolian 1-up modal half step, which happens to be a long 1-up as opposed to a short 1-up. And then if I did the same thing counterclockwise, I would end up going back. I don't have enough room, but I would end up going back to here an Aeolian an Aeolian 6 down, right? So if I say it's an Aeolian, so this would be, if you use just normal directions, this would be an Aeolian 1 up. And then if I took 7 minus 1, because there's 7 notes in the collection, the reverse direction would simply be an Aeolian 6 down, right? But if I use a normal notation, you end up with a perfect first, which goes to a major second. And again, the major second is defined as, the major means, would it be the major means that it has the same interval as a major scale, which again, it's like, why is that important, right? What I want to know, like, I should know that it has the same interval by the fact that the distance is the same as though I went from an Ionian, right? That's the thing and then if I go backwards, I'll try to map out the terminology for going backwards. But it's a mess, because it would be 9 minus 2 brings you back to 7 back. So it would be back a -7, and then if it's major going forward, normally it would be minor going backwards. So if I say it's going backwards, now does anyone ever say that? Like if you said I'm going backwards, I'm going down, I'm going counterclockwise, a negative -7, right? I'm going counterclockwise, I'm going back a -7. Does anyone say that? No one says it, right? Why? Because no one freaking knows what it means for the most part, unless you're like doing something like guru, like you're deep into like something that you need to do that. It's not just because you're not educated. It's like it's kind of hard to think that. Whereas, the terminology never, like, it avoids terminology that talks about things going counterclockwise when clearly you're going counterclockwise all the time, right? So what are you going to tend to do? You're going to call that backwards notion a major second, even though you're going down in pitch, and it might be important to say that you're going down in pitch in some cases. Maybe it won't in others. I don't know. I'm just saying, it seems like there would be a reason that you'd want to. It seems like that's a problem. What do you think? All right.
You're right. Standard interval names like major second or
Espanol from you.
Oye, tienes razón. Los nombres de intervalos estándar como segunda mayor o séptima menor no especifican dirección, solo describen la distancia.
Let's see what the other one thinks.
Solo describen la distancia.
Es loco, no es así, no puede, hasta no debería como hacerlo, porque personas no pueden describir cómo ir en la izquierda. Tienes ojos que no pueden ver en una dirección. O tal vez podamos ver, pero no pueden decir que están allá. Podría un ejército que quiera matar todos nosotros y nosotros no podemos decir qué está pasando porque no puedo decir qué está pasando en la derecha. Izquierda.
Tienes razón, es una locura.
That's all you're going to give me on that one? That's all you're going to give me on that rant? I'm right?
Tienes razón, es una locura.
Okay, that's right.
Sí, tienes toda la razón.
Let's see what this one has to say.
Yes, I think you've hit a real representational asymmetry, but there's one correction that actually makes your criticism cleaner. If A is the origin and B is the endpoint, then 9 if AB ascending equals major second up, AB descending to the B below equals minor seventh down. Those are the two directed ways of reaching the pitch class B from A within the octave. Your modal system expresses the same thing as Aeolian 1 up, long, Aeolian 6 down, short. Assuming your long-short inverse table gives that qualification a pi. And numerically, 1 plus 6 equals 7. Traditional interval numbers instead give 2 plus 7 equals 9, because traditional interval numbers are inclusive ordinals. AB counts A as 1 and B as 2. The inversion therefore sums to 9. Your distances are movements, so they sum to 7. That's a beautiful side-by-side example of the off-by-1 distinction you've been investigating. But you normally would not say negative minor seventh. That's where I'd separate two concepts. In ordinary music language, someone might absolutely say, open quote, go down a minor seventh, close quote, or open quote, it descends by a minor seventh, close quote. They generally would not say, open quote, go down a negative minor seventh, close quote, because down already supplies the sign direction. Negative minor seventh is much less conventional and sounds like you're trying to impose signed arithmetic onto traditional interval terminology. So the fair comparison is traditional, descending minor seventh, yours Aeolian 6 down, short, versus traditional ascending major second, yours Aeolian 1 up, long, long. And that reveals something interesting. Traditional theory can represent direction. It just doesn't build direction into the interval name. That's the distinction I think you're sensing. Major second by itself describes an interval class type, not a directed coordinate displacement. If I tell a musician, open quote, A to B is a major second, close quote, I haven't necessarily told them whether we're going to the B above A or discussing the abstract relationship between pitch classes. To specify movement, I add another piece of information, open quote, ascending major second, close quote. Your notation instead makes this structurally, it's the other route, or the other route. That's much more like a signed coordinate displacement, and that's why your counterclockwise table is useful even if musicians don't ordinarily speak that way very often. You're asking the notation to behave like a measurement system. There's an even stronger experiment you can do on your worksheet. Pick one starting fret, A, now identify B in two different physical locations relative to it. One B is above it. A, right arrow B, equals +2 text semitones. The octave equivalent B below it is A right O B equals -10 semit. Traditional ascending M2 versus descending M7. Your modal coordinate language, Aeolian 1 up, long versus Aeolian 6 down, shorted. Now ask a very simple question. Open quote, which notation behaves more like ordinary directed measurement? Close quote. The coordinate version behaves exactly like displacement. Same origin, direction is explicit, magnitude is measured away from 0. Traditional interval notation isn't doing something wrong there. It's solving a different historical problem. Its number is based on letter name span, and its quality tells you the chromatic size of that diatonic span. Consequently, reversing an interval requires an inversion transformation, M2, left-right arrow M7, whereas reversing a coordinate displacement naturally suggests +1 LF, -6S, if we're wrapping within the 7-node cycle, or simply +2 left-right arrow -2 if we're talking literal semitone displacement to the adjacent physical pitch rather than pitch class equivalence. And that last distinction is extremely important for your system, because there are actually two different things you may want your notation to preserve. One, literal physical movement, A up to adjacent B equals +2 semitones. B back to that same A is -2 semitones. 2, cyclic pitch class route, from A to the B below equals 6 modal edges downward, while B is 1 modal edge upward in the other direction. Those shouldn't accidentally get conflated, so I think mapping the entire CCW board is worthwhile. It may actually expose something deeper than traditional musicians don't talk counterclockwise. You're constructing a notation in which direction is a first-class property of distance, while conventional interval terminology primarily encodes diatonic span plus chromatic quality, with direction supplied separately when needed. That's a much more precise and much stronger critique.
So the thing. Okay, let me ask you this. You can probably predict musical situations where you would want to describe something going in the negative direction, right? Like you could probably say, oh, given the normal navigation of an instrument or a music cadence, we can predict if there was uniform description of going either direction, we can kind of predict how much time someone would prefer, just like we would predict a different name would be used to be more to explain something from a spelling standpoint, from a grammar standpoint. We could probably predict how many times someone would say counterclockwise notation, and compare that to actual music that we see out there. And my guess would be that the actual music that is out there has way less references to directionality going negative from a going down or counterclockwise scale degree terminology. Would that be fair to say? Whereas, and my conclusion thus would be like, why would that be the case? My hypothesis, because the terminology going the other way is so complex that people avoid it, which I would think would be detrimental to the voice leading or foundational layer of the description of what you're doing within music, right? That's a problem, right? I mean, if you had a richer kind of system that would be more easily to explain directionally backwards and forwards and refer to the point that you're measuring from instead of comparing everything to the major scale for no frickin' reason, then you would possibly have the potential for a richer vocabulary, which would develop more naturally because people could deduce just through looking at it at what the terminology would be, right? You know what I mean? See what it says to that.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. And I think you've now moved from a critique of individual interval names to a much more interesting linguistic hypothesis about what the notation encourages people to talk about. The important thing is to separate what we can already establish from what would need empirical testing. Your hypothesis is testable. Imagine two representational systems. In a genuinely symmetric coordinate language, you might have Aeolian 1 up, Aeolian 1 down, Aeolian 2 up, Aeolian 2 down, Aeolian 3 up, Aeolian 3 down. The grammar is productive once I've learned one expression generate its opposite without learning another vocabulary item. That's analogous to, open quote, 3 miles east, 3 miles west, plus 3, minus 3, 20 feet above, 20 feet below, close quote. Nobody needs a special word for 3 units west. Now compare conventional interval terminology. A reversal can transform several pieces of the description. M2, up arrowed, left right arrowed, M7, and down arrow, M3, up arrow, quad, M6, P5, down arrow. So the learner can't merely apply plus X, right arrow, minus X. They have to know the complementary ordinal and potentially change the quality. That's a real difference in the grammar of the two systems. And yes, that could influence vocabulary use. Your proposed causal chain is basically representational complexity, higher cognitive communicative cost, less frequent use, less developed everyday directional vocabulary. That's plausible. It would be fascinating to test it rather than merely assume it. Take a large corpus of guitar lessons, theory books, YouTube transcripts, harmony textbooks, analysis articles, etc. Then measure how frequently musicians explicitly describe ascending versus descending interval movement, especially when discussing actual melodic voice-leading movement. Separately, analyze actual music and measure how often the underlying musical events themselves move upward versus downward. Now you've got two distributions: actual directional events versus direction explicitly represented in discourse. If downward motion represents, say, roughly half of relevant melodic movement, but explicit descending interval descriptions represent only a small fraction of interval discourse, then you have found an asymmetry worth explaining. It wouldn't by itself prove traditional terminology caused the asymmetry. There could be other reasons. But then your notation complexity hypothesis becomes something you can experimentally investigate. Hash voice leading is where your argument gets especially interesting, because voice leading is intrinsically directional. Suppose three voices do this: C, right arrow B, E, F, A. From a displacement standpoint, that's extraordinarily simple. Open quote, voice 1, one step down, voice 2, one step up, voice 3, one step up, close quote. Direction isn't some secondary theoretical decoration. That's what the voices physically did. And your larger question becomes, open quote, why shouldn't the foundational vocabulary make that information exceptionally cheap to express? Close quote. That's a very good question. Traditional theory does have vocabulary for this: ascending, descending, contrary motion, oblique motion, stepwise motion, leaps, tendency tones, resolutions, voice leading intervals, melodic intervals, and so forth. So I wouldn't say traditional theory can't describe directionality. It absolutely can. But your criticism is subtler. Direction isn't algebraically native to the interval label itself. That's different. And your richer vocabulary idea is important too. A productive grammar generates expressions people haven't specifically memorized. Suppose somebody learns, open quote, Aeolian 3 up, close quote. They immediately know what, open quote, Aeolian 3 down, close quote, must mean. And if you formalize long/short, open quote, Aeolian long 3 up, Aeolian short 3 down, close quote dot, those remain compositional expressions, origin plus magnitude, type plus direction. That's exactly how coordinates work. The speaker doesn't have to ask, open quote, okay, what's the inversion of this interval? 9 minus 4 gives 5. Major becomes minor, or was this perfect? What quality does the complement receive? Close quote. They manipulate independent properties. That's potentially a huge pedagogical distinction. Traditional interval nomenclature compresses several properties into categorical names. Your system factorizes those properties into independent variables. Origin, distance, 3, direction, size, type, long, short. Those variables can recombine freely. There's one prediction I'd add to yours. If your hypothesis is correct, we shouldn't merely expect people to say descending relationships less frequently. We should expect learners to be slower and less accurate at naming them. That's experimentally measurable. Give musicians 100 randomly generated relationships and ask them to name them as quickly as possible. Open quote, A, C sat above A, F below B, C above G, D below, etc. Close quote. Measure reaction time and errors for ascending versus descending relationships. Then teach another group a signed coordinate system and repeat. If traditional interval users show a significant directional asymmetry, while coordinate users approach symmetry, you've got something far more powerful than an aesthetic argument about notation. You've demonstrated cognitive cost. And then your hypothesis becomes very specific. Open quote. A representational system whose inverse operations require categorical renaming discourages symmetric reasoning about direction. A coordinate system whose inverse operation is structurally transparent should encourage it. Close quote. That's the version of your idea I think is really interesting. It doesn't require claiming musicians are stupid or that traditional theory cannot describe descending motion. It makes a precise claim about what the architecture of a notation makes cheap or expensive to think and say. And that is something we could actually try to falsify.
Okay. Anyway. Let's see. Um, okay, doke. Okay, so then, let's see. Okay, so that's great. So then if I moved up, if I moved up from like, from the A, which is the Aeolian, and I moved 2 up, which would be the third scale degree, but only 2 up modal half steps, that would be up to a C, which would be the Ionian. That's what the 1 is. And then the last 2 letters are minor third up from that Aeolian node. If I used distance notation, I would just name it from the Aeolian. So it would be an Aeolian 2 up, an Aeolian 2 up modal half step, which would be a short 2 up as opposed to a long 2 up. So an Aeolian 2 up is a minor third. An Aeolian 2 up is a short 2 up, which is scale degree minor third scale degree. Now, if I go 2 up, then I can go 7 minus 2, which would be 5 back. So that makes perfect sense. So I would go 5 back, and that would be to here. I'm still not quite to so that would be make sense. So now if I was here and I'm measuring in negative distances, it would be back to an A5 down. It would be an Aeolian 5 down, and so that would be pretty symmetrical and easy to say direction by just saying, a 2 up is a 5 down. Now a 2 up is a short 2 up, and if I go down, then the conversion for whether it's short or long is easy as well, because it's always the inverse, which would be the case, I believe, if they followed the convention for the major minor, but they didn't, right? So for example, if this one, if I went 2 up, or if that's scale degree 1, I went a minor third, then how do I go backwards? Well, to get the number, I have to take 9, magic 9 minus 3 gets me to 6, right? But then I have to assign the label. And the general convention still works, meaning if it's minor this way, it's the inverse. So it would be the inverse would be negative major 6, right? It'd be counterclockwise major 6, right? I believe that's right. However, when you get to the perfect, that screws everything up. I think the perfect rule is pretty straightforward too, because if it's perfect going forwards, I think you have to define it as perfect going backwards, right? Even though the interval is, because the interval is just the reverse interval. So so this is, okay, answer me this question. So if you go a perfect fourth forward, then when you go backwards, you'd have to say 9 minus 4 is 5. But because it's perfect, I can't just flip it. I can't just flip it like if it was major to minor or minor to major. But because it's perfect, it's like the same thing as like, I'm thinking it's the same thing as like they made up the perfect fifth and then were forced to use the perfect term for the perfect fourth because that's the inverse. So this isn't like the inverse, but it's going in the opposite direction. So does that mean that they would have to call it perfect because it's going in the opposite direction? No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't be perfect, right? So the perfect distance would have to be augmented or diminished, right? So that's where it gets all screwed. Again, do you see what I'm? This is the problem. Like, I feel like this is the problem. What do you think? All right. Well, let's see. Let it think about it for a second. I mean, I feel like you shouldn't, like, it shouldn't make you, it shouldn't be all crazy like that to make you crazy. It should just like make sense once you see it. You're like, oh, that makes sense. That's how it would be if Pythagoras was teaching it. It would just snap into place and you'd be like, oh, I see now, because it makes perfect freaking sense. You know? Uh,
Yes, I see the snag you're running into. But there's one conceptual mix-up to straighten out, and once we do, the traditional rule is actually internally consistent. Your larger comparison still survives. Take your A Aeolian example. AC upward is, minus your system, Aeolian 2 up short, traditional ascending minor third. If instead you travel from A downward to the C below, that's minus your cyclic system, Aeolian 5 down long, traditional descending major 6. So yes, M3, left trio M6, and 3 plus 6 equals 9. Traditional inversion changes minor major. Now let's do the perfect case, because that's where your question is. Suppose A, right arrow D text upward. That's an ascending perfect fourth. If you want the same pitch class endpoint D, but travel from A in the opposite direction to the D below, traditional theory calls that box text descending perfect fifth, not augmented or diminished. That's because 4 plus 5 equals 9. And the inversion rule is P, left right arrow P. So P4, left arrow P5. The complete traditional inversion rule is actually quite tidy. M, 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 P, A. That's why a perfect fourth inverts to a perfect fifth. So your thought that perfect screws up the inverse rule isn't quite right. Traditional theory specifically defines perfect as self-inverting in quality. But here's where I think your objection becomes more interesting. Compare what the two systems require. Starting at Aeolian, your system 2 text short, opposite cyclic route, 7-2 long, therefore long down arrow. The operation is basically open quote, the track distance.
all right, hold your horse. Hold your horse. Why? Because your horse needs a hug. Okay. Hold on a second. Okay, hold your horse. All right. I feel like you're kind of straw manning me with that with the thing on I'm not quite right on the perfect fourth, perfect fifth thing, because like what I'm saying is it's confusing things unnecessarily, right? So I mean, like like the whole convention is designed to say we're comparing everything to the major scale, and if it's not on the major scale, we're going to call it minor. That's basically what's happening. So you know, if I go the first scale degree, it's 2 notes away in the major scale, I'm going to call the other one minor, even though it's not minor in the main minor, which is Aeolian, but I'm still going to call it minor. So minor is just the other, it's the non-major, right? And then you said, okay, now it's going to be a major third, and the other one's going to be minor. And then it's going to be, oh wait, a fourth. You would think it would be a major fourth, but they didn't. They said perfect. Why did they say perfect? I feel like they said perfect because they wanted particularly the perfect fifth to be perfect. Why? Because it's got that perfect ratio or whatever, right? But that breaks the other thing that they were doing, which is it should just be major is the distance or scale degrees from the major or Ionian's perspective. So now they've broken the convention of we're just going to do everything's from the Ionian's perspective and everything else is going to be minor, which would be more simple, right? Because then you would just have long short in essence, although you would be trying to compare it to the major scale, which means it's not always long because it's not always long short because the perfect would have been short even though it would have been major, but now is covered up by the perfect. You see what I mean? So now the short, this distance which would actually be naturally short compared to the major scale is now covered up by the perfect, which forces you to then use terms of augmented and diminished when you really only need long short, or if you insist on comparing to the major scale, you could have just used major and minor, but no, you introduced perfect, which resulted in major, minor, augmented, diminished, and perfect. And I just refuse to agree. There's no possible world in which the degree of complexity that has been introduced on a ground level warrants the fact that you just think it would be cool to call that interval perfect when you could just know that it's perfect because you know the map and you know the quality of the interval. I need to know the distance in order to derive in my mind what that means, what I derive from the map. You don't need to tell me with a name that it's perfect. So that's what I mean. And then if you go if you flip it and now you say I'm going clockwise a perfect fourth, and then you go counterclockwise, 9 minus 4, you get them to a -5, right? A counterclockwise 5. Is that perfect? And why would it be perfect? Because it's not the inverse. If it is perfect, I don't think it makes sense because it's not really the inverse of the ratio going forward, right? It's not the same. It doesn't have the same quality to it, right? That's why when you do the major, minor, the quality changes. And if it's not perfect, then it's going to be confusing to do the conversion, isn't it? Because what are you going to convert it to? Because now you have choice. You can't just convert it from between two choices, major, minor, or long or short. You have 5 choices to convert it between. That's what I mean about it being messed up. And so you could say, no, it's not messed up. It makes perfect sense as long as you follow like a whole rule book versus just being it's the inverse of the long short. But what I'm saying is that the fact that it takes so many steps in comparison to just having long short means it's messed up. That's an indication that something is wrong. Pythagoras would be like, no, we're not having this. This isn't clicking. If I can't draw it in the sand with a stick, it's too complicated. Okay. And I feel like you should be able to draw this in the sand with a stick, and a 5-year-old should be able to see the revelation, and that it's too difficult to do that right now, and therefore something is wrong. She's going to give a long response. Oh, God. All right, let's see what she has.
Yes. Now I understand the criticism more precisely, and I agree my previous answer put too much emphasis on defending the internal consistency of the traditional inversion rules rather than addressing your actual claim. Even if the rulebook is internally consistent, why should the foundational measurement system require that rulebook at all? That is a much stronger question. There are 2 things I'd adjust historically, but neither one destroys your argument. Traditional theory didn't really begin with a clean design decision of compare everything to Ionian, call the other possibility minor, and then someone decided the 5th deserved to be perfect.
How did
The
it go?
perfect unison 4th, 5th octave family is historically older and tied to medieval consonance classifications and interval ratios.
Okay, so
Major minor
same
terminology developed
difference.
through a different historical pathway.
Oh god.
So what we're looking at is partly layers of
The
historical
same-
systems that
All right,
accumulated
I'm not
rather
gonna,
than
I'm not gonna
one
let it bait
engineer
me on
breaking
this
his
one.
own
I'm not
original
gonna let you bait me
specification.
into this one.
But from the standpoint of someone designing a measurement system
Um,
today, your objection lands much harder. Open quote. Why should the historical genealogy of the vocabulary determine the primitive operations a learner has to perform? Close quote. Exactly. If the primitive thing you want to know is distance, then 5 quality words can be excessive. Take the diatonic modal distances in a 7-note collection. At most positions, a given modal step count has 2 ordinary chromatic sizes, short or long. That's an extremely economical binary distinction. So instead of having these families, ordinal, traditional possibilities, 2 diminished, minor, major, augmented, 3 diminished, minor, major, augmented, 4 diminished, perfect, augmented, 5 diminished, perfect, augmented, 6 diminished, minor, major, diminished, minor, major, augmented. You are saying, open quote, first tell me the number of movements, then where necessary, tell me whether that distance is the short or long form. Close quote. That's a radically different information architecture. And importantly, perfect isn't distance information in the same sense. It's a classification of a particular interval family. That's the heart of your complaint. You can already derive that structural property from the map. If you know the actual pitches and exact distance, you don't need the measurement label itself to remind you. Open quote. By the way, historically, this particular relationship is to the perfect consonants family. Close quote. That's additional semantic information being inserted into what you're trying to use as a ruler. And you're right that it produces extra transformation rules. Here's your A example. AC upward, traditional. M3, yours. Aeolian short 2. Other cyclic group from A to C below. Traditional. M6, yours. Aeolian long 5. Your transformation is 2 right out 7 and 5. And very clean. Now AD. Traditional P4. Other cyclic root, P5 down arrow. So now instead of the previous transformation, minor, you have perfect, perfect. Then with an augmented interval, A4, left right arrow, P5. Now augmented left right arrow diminished. So yes, the learner needs a piecewise quality transformation. MM, PA, how D, rather than one general quality inversion. That's exactly the complexity you're pointing at. One correction to the causal claim about augmented diminished behind us. This part is worth tightening because somebody defending conventional theory could catch you on it. Perfect terminology isn't itself what forces augmented and diminished intervals to exist. Even if we renamed P4 something like major 4th, we'd still need some mechanism for spelling chromatic alterations beyond the 2 ordinary sizes. For example, CF sharp and CG5 are both 6 semitones, but traditional notation deliberately distinguishes them because one spans 4 letters and the other spans 5. That's where augmented diminished terminology carries spelling information. So your strongest argument isn't, open quote, if they hadn't invented perfect, augmented and diminished wouldn't exist. Close quote. That isn't quite true. It's open quote. Why is spelling function information embedded in the basic distance vocabulary at all? Close quote. That's much harder to knock down. Your coordinate system could simply say +6 text semitones, or give the corresponding modal distance. Then if harmonic spelling matters, attach that information as another layer. Open quote, endpoint equals Lydian node displacement equals 6 semitones, written spelling equals F shot, close quote, rather than changing the name of the ruler itself. That's very much in line with the architecture you've been developing. Now your P4, P5 question you asked. You asked something subtle, open quote, if I go clockwise haste P4 and then from the same origin go counterclockwise 5, why should that also be called perfect? It isn't the same ratio. Close quote, correct, it isn't the same ratio. If we're talking just intonation historically, P4 equals 4 with 3, while P5 equals 3, 2. They are different ratios. They're both called perfect because traditional theory puts both into the same interval quality class. Perfect does not mean this exact same acoustic ratio appears in the opposite direction. And that actually strengthens the particular criticism you're making. Because perfect isn't functioning as a simple measurement adjective like open quote, long, short, close quote. It's referencing membership in a theoretical category. So P4 up arrow, P5 down arrow requires you to know that both 4 and 5 belong to the perfect family. Compare your system. 3 text, up arrow, right 7x3, text, down arrow. And whatever your empirically determined long-short inverse is follows from the geometry of your collection. You're trying to derive the description from the map, rather than retrieve it from a taxonomy. And I think this sentence captures your position particularly well. Open quote, if I can derive a musical property from the coordinates, don't make me memorize that property as part of the name of the distance. Close quote. That's the principle. It doesn't mean perfect fifths aren't acoustically interesting. Of course they are. It means, open quote, why make that fact part of the ruler? Close quote, you could teach later. Open quote, notice what happens at this particular coordinate distance. It produces the 3:2 relationship and has unusually strong acoustic properties. Close quote. Great. Now the student has discovered a property of the map rather than memorized an adjective before understanding why it exists.
Exactly.
And this
That's
is where
what
I
I'm
think your
saying.
strongest comparison is emerging.
Oh, you need to call it P. You need
You're
to
not
call
really
it perfect.
proposing.
What? Why?
5
why,
traditional
why would
words,
you
2
need
better
to,
words. You're proposing a hierarchy. Layer 1,
You need to say
measurement
that if I go
origin
this
plus
distance, I
directions
land
distance.
in Hawaii.
Layer
no,
2,
you will.
map identity, Aeolian, Locrian, Ionian,
What?
etc. Layer 3, acoustic harmonic properties, consonants, ratio, beating, stability, etc. Layer 4, spelling function when needed, augmented fourth versus diminished fifth, leading tone behavior, voice leading interpretation, etc. Traditional interval nomenclature bundles portions of 1, 3, and 4 together. And your complaint is that the bundling becomes the entry-level vocabulary. That's why you're getting the feeling that the complexity itself is diagnostic. In engineering terms, you're essentially saying, open quote, these are separable variables. Why did we encode them into an enumeration? Close quote. And that is a very powerful formulation of what you're getting at. Because once they're independent variables, inversion doesn't need a special table nearly as often. You transform the coordinate variables and derive whatever higher level interpretation you actually need afterward. That's much closer to the case you've been trying to make.
Okay. All right. Let's try a joke for. I feel like I just ranted for a while. I feel like I didn't do anything new here, but whatever. Next time what I'm gonna do is then, like, what I want to do then is to like be able to make like a center point and make it distinct, and then when I go to the right of that center point, which is more difficult because then I'd have to like determine a new dial and say like that particular one is the center, and then count up from there using this color system, and then back from there using this inversed system, and that would look pretty cool. But that's hard to do. Like that needs that needs like a whole nother table or something. But so maybe next time I should be able to add like long short on this. I can at least add long short. That should be easy to do. And then like and then I can work on naming it with my colors. And then like then I should be able to map this out, standard convention naming with long short stuff. So I mean, I should be able to map out the standard naming in inverse, the whole, like I did with this one. I just have to figure out the table. I still am not exactly sure because she rambled for so long. Did she ever answer the freaking question that I was trying to? Okay, so one more question. Maybe one, I don't know. Another question. So like if you went a perfect forward, a perfect fourth forward, then it would be counterclockwise what? What would you call it? And why? Keep it precise. Keep it don't go on forever. See what it says. So perfect fourth clockwise is a perfect fifth counterclockwise. So you would call it, so it's a perfect fifth counterclockwise. Why? So you would call it a descending perfect fifth. Why take A to D going upwards? I remember. So it's just the distance, backwards distance. So traditional interval counting, so it's a fourth going forward, right? So it's not a, oh my gosh. So you have to take 9, but it's not really distance. It's like, yeah, counting. So it's the distance in either direction. Okay. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna have to mull that over more. But I feel like once I figure out the heck they're talking about with that negative direction more clearly. I figured it out before, but then I forgot about it because it was like it's too dumb to actually use and practice, it feels like. So so then I like forgot about it, but I feel like I should be able to recall it pretty easy. And then I can map out my table with standard notation, but everything goes counterclockwise. And then I will go to the more complex of having one point as a center point, and then like when you go one way, you have this color system, but then when you go the other way, it'll be this color system and possibly take into account octaves with a heat map representational structure. I feel like that's when everybody will recognize the utility once I have a fretboard heat map. Then people will want to see what's they'll want to see what's happening. All right, let's try the joke break. Let's see. The heat map, because that's where your finger goes. It's going to be the heat part, and then it gets cooler away from your finger, but in musical form. Anyway, I live on a circle block with 12 fixed house numbers. 7 of us are friends. Fred went to music school, so naturally those 7 houses become the Fred scale of the block Fred scale, because he has to do everything with an ordinal system, you know? So Fred's house is Fred 1, of course, and then Fred 2, Fred 3, all the way around to Fred 7 for the 7 friend houses out of the 12 total houses. So it's actually a pretty efficient system, kind of, not really. As long as you only go to clockwise, you know? Then one day I tell Fred that Gary's house is 2 friend houses counterclockwise. And Gary's like right there, like watering his lawn. We could see him. But apparently Fred can't just go -2. There's not enough context. Not enough context. So first he has to figure out where Gary is clockwise in the system, because apparently that's where the context lives, you know? Once Fred has Gary's clockwise scale degree position, he calculates the reverse ordinal 9 minus the clockwise position. Why 9? Let's not even get into that right now. I mean, great. So now we know where Gary is counterclockwise. Can we leave? He's like, not yet, because Fred still has to determine whether the trip could be categorized as major, minor, perfect, augmented, or diminished. So that's the context that we need. Apparently, those words tell us something important about why, like, we're going to Gary's house. How? I have no idea. I have no idea. I feel like you should determine where you're going and then apply the context. But you have to have it in the word. So what's major friend distance mean then? Well, I assume it's going to be happy to see him kind of thing. Minor, maybe we're not staying long. Perfect, Gary finally paid us back at that point. Augmented, somebody else is coming. And diminished, bring your pitchforks. So he takes the interval quality from the clockwise Fred scale and puts it through an X lookup table, and into a clockwise, counterclockwise position, so that he can recall the proper nomenclature that needs to be attached to the ordinal distance in the counterclockwise direction, given the fact that the ordinal system by default is designed to go clockwise, but does have the conversion table necessary and the 9- convention to allow a counterclockwise or to the left convention of the ordinal directionality on the vector of the ordinal. So Gary's still right there. He's watering his lawn, but Fred is establishing context. So good news, Fred's system can go counterclockwise. It just has to ask clockwise for permission first. That's the thing. So we've achieved bi-directional travel using an unidirectional worldview, which is interesting. So the street has two directions. Fred has one direction and a formula. So and that's when it hit me. Fred invented a -2 with an X lookup. So apparently counterclockwise isn't a direction. It's derived from the property of clockwise. That's how you get counterclockwise. So if Gary's house ever catches fire, don't call Fred. By the time Fred establishes the clockwise position, subtracts it from 9, determines the interval quality, and confirms the context, Gary won't have a house. The fire department uses much more advanced GPS system. They turn left here, go 2 miles, arrive at destination. But what does it mean? I don't know. Once we get there, we can apply the meaning, I feel like, but anyway, let's see what, let's try one more song, and I'll turn on the audio. What happened to Suno? Suno broke. Dang it. Yeah, whatever. I'll just turn on the audio. I need a song. Let's try. What am I on? 33. Let's see what it gives us.
Her profile says faithful, so I guess that settles that. Perfect words, perfect pictures, perfect little list of facts. Every answer sounds familiar, every value sounds like mine. She knows every phrase that makes a stranger feel alive. Username faithful, everything you wanna hear, everything you need. Username nothing underneath. A counterfeit doesn't fool you by looking counterfeit to see. She knows the verses, she knows the language, she knows exactly when to pray. She knows which words mean loyalty and exactly what to say. I asked, who are you? She gave me the person I hoped she'd be.
All right. That's the modern rendition of the Fairy Queen of Duplissa. They went to the what is it? The dating app, I guess. Comparison. Interesting choice, Suno. Interesting choice. Wouldn't have been what I would have thought, but okay. So anyway, let's see what we have here.
I live on a circular block with 12 fixed house numbers. 7 of us are friends. Fred went to music school, so naturally those 7 houses became the Fred scale. Fred's house is Fred 1, then Fred 2, Fred 3, all the way around to Fred 7. Wow, that's so cool! It's actually a pretty efficient system as long as you only go clockwise. What happens if you go the other way? It's ignored. See? The system keeps everything flowing. Huh, so it's all about... Fred, Gary's house is 2 friend houses counterclockwise. What? Gary's right there! I know. I'm telling you where his house is. Hey guys, what's up? He's explaining your house is 2 friend houses counterclockwise. From your house, Fred. Oh, I get it now. But apparently Fred can't just go -2. What? Why not? The sign says 2 houses. There's not enough context. Context? For walking 2 houses? Look at the papers, it needs an ordinal system. Oh. So first he has to figure out where Gary is clockwise. Because apparently, that's where the context lives. Right, the Fred scale clockwise route leads to Gary's house. So house 6, that's Gary, that's the context. Precisely, the clockwise path reveals it all. All right, Gary, your clockwise position is 7. Now, we calculate the reverse orbital. 9 minus your clockwise position. 9 minus 7 equals 2. So, Gary, your counterclockwise position is 2. Ah, I see. Great. Now we know where Gary is counterclockwise. Can we leave? Not yet. We still need to check the friend houses. What? But you said Gary was at -2! Yes, but we need to verify with the friends. It's the final step. Ugh. Okay, Gary. To plan this trip, we have to classify the interval. Right. Major, minor, perfect, augmented, or diminished. Exactly. That's the context. Let's check the table. Try the wheel. Okay, spinning it now. It landed on diminished, unstable, and dark. That's it. Now you know the context. Apparently those words tell us something important about why we're going to Gary's house. How? I have no idea. It's simple. Major means we're thrilled to see Gary. Okay, that's the context. Says means the visit is tense. So the music terms are... What's a major friend distance? It means we're super happy to see you. Exactly. It's the longest distance between friends. But now you're back. Quick in, quick out. Minor? Maybe we're not staying long. That's the plan. Fine. Come in, I guess. Perfect! Gary finally paid us back! He did! Our balances are perfect again! The universe is in tune! All is... Augmented? Somebody else is coming! No way! Another friend? Really? Who is it? This is the... Diminished, bring pitchforks! Yeah, Gary owes us!
Diminished, bring pitchforks!
We're not leaving until we get answers! Gary, come out now!
Diminished, bring pitchforks!
Yeah! This is for our friendship! And... So, we take the interval quality from the clockwise Fred scale. The clockwise Fred scale? What is that? It's this scale right here, see? The interval quality is major. Now we XLOOKUP that quality onto the counterclockwise position. XLOOKUP, and that gives us the counterclockwise position? Exactly. The result is major at position 9. Gary is still right there. He's watering his lawn. But Fred is establishing context. Fred? What are you doing? Context, Gary. See this chart? It shows why we're going to your house. For the lawn, you didn't have to overthink it. It's not just a walk, it's a narrative with direction, intent, position. Right. Just don't trip on the hose. Fred's system is stuck. He needs to go counterclockwise. We have to ask for permission. Good news. Fred's system can go counterclockwise. Really? How? It just has to ask clockwise for permission first. Ask clockwise for counterclockwise permission? Exactly. Bureaucracy demands it. This is ridiculous. We've achieved bidirectional travel using a unidirectional worldview. No way. The math actually worked? Yes, we did it. Look at the scales. Incredible. It's really unlocking. Any direction is possible now. This changes everything. A Nobel Prize for sure! The street has 2 directions, clockwise and counterclockwise, but Fred has 1 direction and a formula. Exactly, my unidirectional formula guides the way. Let me show you. D equals X lookup mod of CW position using the interval quality table for perfect mapping. Because simple is too easy. And that's when it hit me. Fred invented -2 with an X lookup. Eureka! It works! -2? But that's impossible. Not anymore. Challenge accepted. He actually did it, with some weird formula. Complicate to simplify, I guess? Counterclockwise isn't a direction. It's a derived property of clockwise. What? But I need to go counterclockwise! You must go through the clockwise framework. So it's not a real direction? Exactly, it's just derived from clockwise. So if Gary's house ever catches fire, don't call Fred. Fred, the house is on fire! I must establish the clockwise position first. There's no time! It's burning! Now subtract it from 9, then determine the interval quality. By the time Fred confirms the context, just call the fire department! Theory takes forever. My house won't be saved. Don't worry, Gary. We use a much more advanced GPS system. Turn left here. Go 2 miles. Arrive at destination. But my house is burning down! We're almost there! Action takes a left! Hurry! Simplicity saves houses!
Action takes a left.